Hi guys, welcome to the chat. Hopefully everything is going well on your end. My end is not going so well. I keep getting like a lag, so hopefully you guys can hear and see me okay. I'm gonna go through and welcome some of you. I see Cherry's Jubilee. Hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. I also see Brenda Brown. Hello and welcome. Live Life, welcome to the chat. I think this is Elizabeth. I always get your screen name confused. Forgive me. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to the chat. Free live. Hello. Welcome. And Courtney Frazier. And I'm so sorry to hear about that, Courtney. I think you mentioned to me a while ago that you were dealing with being in the hospital. So I'm so sorry to hear that. That's no fun at all. Hopefully you're doing better. For me, I'm sure you guys can hear I have the flu. I'm on the up though. I've been doing a whole lot better than I have been. Literally for this live chat, okay, and for work all week, this is what I've been doing, and then of course tea. So there you have it. That's how this chat is going to be tonight. But I'm going to make this very short. Yeah, hi, Jerry's Jubilee. Glad to see you. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of an overview of self-sabotage and why I'm talking about this tonight. We've been talking a lot about families and personality disorders and just difficult family interactions and dynamics. And so self-sabotage, I noticed, is not really talked about when it comes to families. It's talked about on an individual basis. You have that individual who does all these things, and their behaviors and their attitudes and their mindsets lead to self-sabotage. But while that is true, that's individual self-sabotage, we also have what's known as family self-sabotage, and that's when an individual within a family dynamic begins to engage in certain behaviors that's not healthy. And interestingly, that person kind of stays stuck in an unhealthy, toxic family dynamic because of self-sabotage. Let me just throw in here too, before we jump into the content, that someone who self-sabotages in a family, it's not always conscious. Sometimes it's unconscious, and the individual ends up engaging in negative behaviors that is for them a protective mechanism. It's like a unconscious survival mechanism. And when you come from a toxic or unhealthy family dynamic, all you know is survival. All you know is survival. And so what do you do when your family is unsafe and it's toxic and it's really difficult for you to live in? What do? Right? You find different ways to live and to survive and to keep your sanity. And so while you're doing that surviving, you don't realize most likely that you're self-sabotaging. So we're going to get into this a little bit. I also want to give you some theories around self-sabotage, and then I'm going to give you some behaviors that you or your family may be engaging in, when it comes to self-sabotage. So let me acknowledge some of you that have signed on while I was talking. Shamika Williams, hello. Welcome to the chat. Thank you so much. I'm on the up. I'm no longer in bed sick. So that's great, right? Don One, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you here. Eye of the Tiger, hello. Welcome. She Prays. Oh, I love that. Welcome to the chat. Oh, okay. Yeah, she changed her screen name from She Fit 444. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about that. She prays. Um, and then Fairy Girl. Oh my goodness, Fairy Girl. Hello, welcome to the chat. I also see Princess. Welcome, Serafina. Welcome. Yes, it's been a while. So glad to see you tonight. Yes, Angela Smith. Hello, welcome. Glad to see you as well. Glad to see you. All right, so let me just jump into this, okay? And of course, I will do like I always do. I'll acknowledge you as we go through the chat tonight. Hi, Anthony D. I just saw you sign on. Welcome, T Mac. Hello, welcome. Yeah. Yeah, free live. Yeah, absolutely. The Netherlands. I so want to go there. I do. Before I leave this earth, I want to go to the Netherlands. I really do. The Netherlands. I do. That's a dream of mine. So okay, let's jump in, okay, guys. And as I go along, I will address your comments and welcome you. So let's talk about self sabotage. Now, if you were to Google self sabotage, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get individual behaviors that causes you to self sabotage, to create some kind of stalling period, or to create some kind of barrier that you can't overcome. You're going to find that on Google. But for tonight's chat, I'm only talking about self sabotage in terms of being in a family, not knowing how to get out of it, not knowing how to free yourself because of self sabotaging behaviors. So I mentioned earlier that it's a survival mechanism, but I also want to mention too that it's a defense mechanism. When you can't see your way clear, and you can't see your way out of something, or when something doesn't add up to you or it doesn't make sense, then you put up your defenses because you don't know what else to do. Again, it's a survival mechanism, it's a protective mechanism, right? It's a process of thwarting the progress. Let's say, for example, you have a very narcissistic mother. She judges you, she criticizes you, she harms you with her mouth, right? She has a pretty sharp tongue, as they say. She wanted you to have a particular spouse or a particular job or buy a home in a particular place or meet her expectations only in life. Maybe your mother is also very selfish and manipulative and triangulating, right? And she probably has, other than a narcissistic personality, she probably has a borderline personality as well. So we can kind of team those two things up. Excuse me. So this is the profile of your mother, right? Let's say, for example, you didn't meet any of her expectations. The best way to protect yourself from separating from your mom, or having to continually listen to her judgments of you, somehow you thwart the process of progress in your life, because the walls are up too high. You can't climb over the mountain or the wall. It's just too much. Her expectations are way up here and maybe you're here. So what do? You kind of self-sabotage and you give up, right? And you say, the heck with this. I can't do this. And you go do your own thing because it's easier. It's really what you wanted to do in the first place. That's kind of a form of self-sabotage that's protective. That's a protective form of self sabotage. You're saying, I'm protecting my mind and my heart because I can't meet your expectations of me. So I'm going to actually cause my own destruction so I don't have to meet your expectations, which are unfairly up here. So that's one form of a protective mechanism of self sabotage. Let me also mention, too, and I should have mentioned this earlier, self sabotage is the result of intergenerational trauma. And this is most likely the unconscious form of self sabotage. It is, I am getting into let's say, for example, a romantic relationship with somebody that I know is not going to commit. They're not faithful. They're not going to commit to me. They are not family oriented. Well, that happened to your mom. That happened to your grandmother. That happened to your great aunt. That happened to your great cousin, whatever. It's, excuse me, it's a lineage of intergenerational trauma, and it's self sabotage. I'm unaware. This is unconscious self sabotage. I'm unaware that I am doing everything that the generations before me has done. And that is unconscious. Once again, unconscious self-sabotage. Now you may be wondering, how in the world does self-sabotage, how in the world is it unconscious? It's a mechanism of trauma. Somehow you learn to protect yourself unconsciously. And the best way to do that is to thwart the process of something, or to become content with the way things are. And so sometimes, because that expectation is too high, or because you can't maybe do what somebody else wants you to do, or you can't meet your own expectations, you end up falling in line with all the intergenerational trauma you've been a part of. I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know in the comment section. Excuse me, let me know in the comment section, and then I will answer your question, or I will clarify. So that is the unconscious and the conscious forms of intergenerational trauma. Now, I keep seeing my camera go in and out, guys. Okay, if it's doing that, please let me know. Not quite sure why that's happening. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I have no clue what's going on. Cherry Jubilee says something really interesting and said it's a vicious cycle. Yes, it is. Unconscious and conscious self-sabotage is a vicious cycle. You self-sabotage your relationship. Couple years later, you self-sabotage another relationship. Couple years later, you self-sabotage a job opportunity. It's a constant cycle, and it doesn't have to be just relationships. It could be moving to a new place you know is healthier for you. It could be traveling. It could be saving money. It could be, taking care of your health. It could be anything. Somehow you consciously and unconsciously thwart the process of progress. Self-sabotage is also fear-based. We have a almond size, and I always talk about this on the channel, but we have an almond size structure in the middle of the brain, and it is called the amygdala. The amygdala. The amygdala is really where the seat of our emotions are in the brain. And it helps us determine, what's an emotional memory and what isn't. It cements our emotional memories. Let's say, for example, yeah, I see that comment. I'm sorry, guys, I got distracted by the comment box. Let's say, for example, you went on a vacation with your family. It was a wonderful time. You felt loved and cared for and, secure and embraced and all of that. That vacation has now become an emotional memory because there's emotions attached to that memory, right? So the amygdala is part of our emotional memories. It's also a part of our fight or flight system. And it also operates like a flashlight. It's constantly, this part of the brain, the amygdala, is constantly searching the environment, as would a flashlight, looking for something that is threatening. And so sometimes when you are in a toxic family dynamic and you can't meet the expectations of a family member, or that it's going to be difficult to get out of that family situation, or you're feeling intimidated by family members who are judging you or critical of you, what happens? The amygdala says this is a threat. And then after that, what happens? Your brain shuts down, your emotions shuts down, your ability to be confident shuts down. And so now here you are, right? Self-sabotaging because of the fear response. And it's literally a fight or flight response. Instead of flight, you kind of stay and you fight. You kind of stay in that situation because you feel that you can't get out of it. This is also a form of traumatic bonding, right? Traumatic bonding is the idea that you've become kind of enmeshed and cemented with somebody that's not healthy for you, and so it's hard for you to run and get out of that situation, right? So what do? You kind of hold on to the nice part of that person, and you kind of dismiss those negative parts of that person. And so the fact that self-sabotage is fear-based is not really shocking, right? Because sometimes it's easier to just sit in the situation rather than try to get out of it. Staying in a unhealthy family dynamic feels familiar and safer. Let's say, for example, you want to get away from your family. You're thinking of walking away and never looking back, blocking your family and having nothing to do with them because they've hurt you and they're critical, and the list goes on. Let's say that that's what you plan to do. Well, you might find yourself kind of backstepping a little bit, not necessarily becoming afraid of saying goodbye, but more so feeling anxiety, feeling sadness, feeling confusion, feeling a little bit conflicted on the inside of you. There may be a form of cognitive dissonance going on. And cognitive dissonance means that it's hard for your brain to hold two opposing views. I want to get away from my family, but if I get away, will I survive? If I stop talking to them, is that going to be a good thing? So now you're kind of stuck and you don't know which way to go. So there may be a form of cognitive dissonance there. But so you're going through all of this, right? You make it to a place where you say, you know what, I'm not doing any of it because I'm going to stay here because it is safer and it is more familiar than anything else that I've had, I've wanted to do, if that makes sense. It is safer, it's familiar, so I'm going to stay here. Self-sabotage right there, because you know your family dynamic and system is unhealthy. You want to get away from it, you want to block it, you want to escape it. But again, you don't want to deal with something that's new. You don't want to deal with something that's perplexing. You may not want to deal with the criticism that comes attached, with walking away from your family. So the self-sabotaging piece of this is you say, you know what, I'm going to stay right here because it's safer and it's familiar. So, and keep in mind that term cognitive dissonance. I'm holding two opposing views in my mind, and it's hard for me to marry the two. So instead of trying to make sense out of these two things, I'm just going to drop it and say, you know what, I'm done. Enmeshment is another part of the process of self sabotage. Being this close to a family member, a parent, a cousin, an uncle, a sibling, and being so close that the closeness is toxic. It's toxic. When you're enmeshed or stuck with somebody like that, or you're trauma bonded, it's really hard to walk away. So you may find yourself come back to that enmeshment, that traumatic bonding, because it's familiar and it's safe. You don't want to deal with the newness of something else. All right, let me go to the chat box and take a break. Ooh, this is kind of rough, guys. I didn't think being sick would make this hard. All right, let me say hello to you, Maya or Myra. Is it Myra? Mayra? I'm going to say Mayra. Hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. I also see Hoodie 18th, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you as well. Glad to have you tonight. If you could clarify that question for me, I'm happy to answer it. I like what Mayra said. She says, practice setting boundaries. Yep. Yes. Serafina says, I was in a space for a few years before moving away and becoming estranged. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes you're buying time, right? You're buying time. It's hard to walk away. It's hard to be, in your own life away from an unhealthy family. So what do? You buy time. And so for you, Serafina, it sounds like you were there for a few years. Some people say, I'm going to stay with my family for this amount of time and then I'm gone. It's kind of like you're buying time. Um, pass, pass your time. I hope I said that right. Forgive me if I did not. Hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you here. Hello, Deb. Well, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you tonight. Crash Course One, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. And thank you so much for that. I'm glad you popped on for a little bit. Yeah, hello, Relationship Nursing. Welcome to the chat tonight. Glad to have you. Okay, Free Live says, do you have advice on EMDR? I do not. So my understanding of EMDR is that it's very neurologically based. And I am no expert in EMDR by any stretch. I actually would get a book called, let me see if I can pull this up for you. And so many people have gotten this book. It is now at Target for $10.99. This is not a promotion by any stretch, but I think it's important to have this book in your records. I hope you can see that. Whoop, there we go. It's by Dr. Vander Colt, and it's called The Body Keeps Score. There's a lot of talk about trauma. You're going to also get some information on EMDR in that book as well. He's the expert, if you ask me, of EMDR therapy. So that's as far as I can take that one. I hope that's helpful. Hello, HF Sunflower. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. I don't remember seeing you. So hello and welcome. Forgive me if you've been here before. Joe, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I'd love to distance myself from my family sister, from my sister, but it would hurt too much to not be in contact with my nieces. Absolutely. So, this is kind of like a form of self sabotage. I'm glad you brought this up. Here's what happens, and you just gave a fantastic example. It's so difficult to separate, right? Let's say, for example, I'm going to give you another example. Let's say, for example, you want to walk away from your parents. You're an adult child of narcissistic parents. Mom and dad are both narcissistic, but in different ways. You don't want to anger your siblings, right? You don't want to anger your brother. You don't want to anger your sister. You don't want to anger anybody that's close to your parents, right? Neither do you want to hear them criticize you for what you're planning to do, right? So what do? You say, you know what, I'm just going to stay right here, and I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to deal with the abuse, I'm going to deal with the challenges, I'm going to deal with the criticism, I'm going to deal with the narcissism, because that's just that, it's just that easy. And that's easier, excuse me, that's easier than walking away. And I don't want to lose contact with those people that I care about the most. So when you finally walk away, if you ever finally walk away from your family, what keeps most people stuck, and this happens to my clients as well, what keeps most people stuck here is their connection with other family members. How do you walk away from your parents if your brother and your sister are close to your parents, right? Is that going to ruin that dynamic? Probably, between you and your siblings. What do you do if you want to walk away from your aunt if both of your parents are connected with your aunt and they're always visiting and they're always, somehow connecting? It's very difficult. So self-sabotage happens there as well. You just say, you know what, I can't do it and I won't do it. Deb says, I've done EMDR for some of my early childhood trauma and found it helpful, but I had a really good therapist. Yeah, absolutely. Let me also just add in here that EMDR therapy may be helpful when it comes to self sabotage as well, because what's going to happen in those sessions is that if you have a really good therapist, that therapist is going to walk you through why you self sabotage. You're going to also explore where this self sabotaging behavior has originated from. Is there something on the inside of you that's causing it, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here? Or is there a pattern over generations in your family that has caused this, So, yes, EMDR can be helpful for that. I'm glad you brought that up, Deb. Yes, it is Live Life. It is a good book. Oh, gotcha. I got you, Sunflower Hat. Got you. I'm like, who is this? You guys are changing screen names on me. Hoodie 18th says coercion and tactics could induce enough for a person, if they are being targeted by something like narcissistic abuse by proxy, something you can't just walk away from. That's not registering for me, Hoodie 18th. And it's probably just me tonight. I will come back to that, okay? I need time to let it sink in. I'm not getting that. That's not clear for me. And it's probably me. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I will come back to that. Betsy, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Says, I am new here. I found you a few months ago after my narcissistic father died. I have dealt with a narcissistic dysfunctional family. Well, I'm glad to have you, Betsy. I'm so sorry for your loss. That's difficult, and it's even, to me, more difficult when you have a narcissistic uh when you have narcissistic parents, right? Because our parents are supposed to be there to love us no matter what. They're supposed to be there to protect us and hold our hand when we need it, and similar things. So I find, and my clients find this personally just overwhelming, to have a parent that's a narcissist. It's one thing if you have a sibling that's a narcissist, a husband, a wife, whatever, but it just feels so different when your narcissistic individual is a parent. So I'm glad to have you tonight. I'm glad you logged on. Call Colibri Flyer. My goodness. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Says, I've reconnected with my older sister and brother. My suspect narc sister stays blocked. I have had enough of her. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, sometimes you just have to walk away, right? You just have to say, you know what, this is not going to work. I'm not going to try to reach out to you. I'm not going to try to make this relationship work. This is reciprocal, this is mutual. So if you don't want to make this work, I'm going to have to make the decision that is best for me, right? Yes, you're welcome, Betsy. You're welcome. Thank you for that. That's so sweet to say. All right, let's go back to the content, guys. Let's go back to the content. And I want to give you a new term. So, this is a new term that, oh, give me 1 second, guys. I don't want us to get disconnected here. This is a new term that I haven't brought to the channel yet, and it is called interpersonal dependency. Interpersonal dependency. And what happens in a family system where self-sabotage occurs is that there's a dependency when it comes to relationships within that family system. You kind of become, it's kind of a destructive, I'll say this, it's a destructive over dependency, and it makes it really difficult for you to move from point A to point B, or to move from one level to the next level in a very toxic family dynamic. Instead of self sabotaging, what happens is you become a little bit overly dependent on certain family members. That's why it's called interpersonal dependency, or destructive over dependence. You become kind of indecisive because you don't know which way to go. You feel kind of stuck. You don't want to ruin relationships. You don't want to create a scenario where you're being criticized or harmed in any way, psychologically or emotionally, by other family members or by other people. So what do? You kind of get stuck. And it's a form of self-sabotage. You may not know it's a form, right? Because self-sabotage can be unintentional. So you may be, kind of falling prey to these behaviors I'm going to mention in a little bit here, and not even know it. So destructive overdependence is seen in your indecisiveness, right? You don't know which way to go. You're not sure if you should or should you not. Should you? When? Should I ever? Right? You're kind of indecisive. There's also a passivity involved. So you're very passive. You don't know how to make the. Sorry, guys. It looked like my camera froze a little bit. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, I apologize if you're seeing it on my end. I'm gonna keep talking though. Looks like we're okay. There's a passivity involved, right? You kind of become passive and quiet, and maybe a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit silent, reticent is the term. You just kind of stop talking. There's also an excessive need for approval that's involved in interpersonal dependency. It's, I'm now dependent upon you, so I need your approval of me. There's a need for approval, uh, in the destructive overdependence. I hope that makes sense. Kind of being locked within a toxic family system is like being locked in a prison, and you can't get out of that prison. You go this way, that doesn't look good. You go that way, that doesn't look good. You think about going that way, and no, I don't really want to go that route. You look at going over this way, no, it looks a little bit difficult. Maybe I shouldn't. So what do? You succumb unconsciously to where you are in that toxic family dynamic, and you give up. Self sabotage. Let me give you some behaviors that you may have seen in yourself. Okay, these are behaviors that research has backed up and reported multiple times when it comes to the topic of self sabotage. Let me just say to you before I give you the behaviors, self sabotage is an interesting topic. You're going to find it all over YouTube, all over the web, right? All over Google, whatever browser that you use, because a lot of people self sabotage and they aren't aware of it. I once had a client. I'll give you an example story that may be helpful. I once had a client who was going through various relationships, one after the other after the other. It was like eating Oreo cookies for herself. You know what I mean? She would go on one date, nope, dispose of that one. Go on another date, nope, I'm done with that one. And what she didn't realize is that she was self-sabotaging. It was a pattern of, I'm going to date this person and then I'm going to find something wrong with them. I'm going to now date this new person, but I'm going to find something wrong with them. And that was the pattern. So every time she would date someone, she would find something, even if it was the smallest thing, to self-sabotage. She had the most wonderful date of her life with one male. Um, he was from the UK, and he was a sweetheart to her. You know, you could tell that he was very respectful and engaged and loving and caring. He was the kind of guy that would commit. She brought him to one of her sessions. We had a session. She even dropped some kind of hint that she was thinking maybe one day marriage. She was really in a secure kind of a relationship. She had been in the relationship for 6 months. Um, Things were moving a little fast for her, but still 6 months of great, times with this guy said a lot. Let me get a drink of tea, guys. So here's what she self-sabotaged. She self-sabotaged by finding one wrong thing with him. And this is why self-sabotage can sometimes be detrimental. She went to his house and saw that he had a picture on his mantle that showed a banner in the background that he didn't graduate from the university that he said he graduated from. Now, this was a big mistake because he was actually at somebody else's graduation with a gown on. It was some kind of way that he had graduated with his friend. She left out of there, didn't give him time to explain himself, asked to talk to me in the next session. And she said, I blocked him. I ghosted him. I want nothing else to do with him, because if he's going to lie to me about what college and school he went to, what else is he going to lie to me about? Completely self-sabotaged. And she is still single to this day. This particular person is no longer a client, but when she had engaged in years and years of self-sabotage. Some of it was unintentional. Some of it was intentional. And again, it was her way of surviving, her way of putting up the defense, the barriers that says, I'm not going to be hurt and I'm not going to be taken for a fool. So unfortunately, she self-sabotaged that wonderful relationship. Okay. So that's a long example of self-sabotage. Now, let me give you a list of behaviors that you yourself may have engaged in, or maybe family members, that's self-sabotaging. The first thing is kind of having this low self-esteem and low feelings of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the idea that I have the skills that I need to do what I need to do in life. I can make sense out of things. I'm good at this, right? I have talent here. I have the ability to do this, that, the other. Self-efficacy. Self-esteem says, I see myself in a way that is either healthy or negative. If you have a healthy self-esteem, that is good. So self-esteem and self-efficacy is almost always a barrier to moving along in a healthy way in life. It's almost always at the core of self-sabotage. Having low feelings of self-efficacy and having low self-esteem is often at the core of self-sabotage. So is dependent personality. Being dependent upon somebody else can also be self-sabotaging. Let's say you're overly dependent on one of your siblings, or you're overly dependent on one of your toxic parents, right? Or you're overly enmeshed with somebody else. That is also often at the core of self-sabotage, because you're not going to want to become a better you, because you don't want to lose what's familiar and what's comfortable. Also at the core of self-sabotaging is unhealthy relationships and unhealthy relationship beliefs. Your belief system, or how you see life, how you see or perceive your reality, how you see your relationships, can also be at the core of self-sabotaging. Like my previous client, she thought he was a liar. She thought that he was trying to take her, right? Not be very honest. And so she self-sabotaged that way. Her belief system, which is that no one can be trusted, is what kind of kept her stuck. Okay, let me take a little bit of a break, guys, and then we'll continue on to look at the behaviors. Thank you, Deb. She says, I'm so sorry you're sick again. Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know what's going on with me, okay? It's probably stress. That's probably what it is. Yeah, I agree with you, Princess. Absolutely. It is. Yeah, absolutely. So Free Live says, I wondered whether people pleaser and self sabotage go together. Yes, it does. Because if you, that's a fantastic thing that you asked, a fantastic question. Being a people pleaser is a form of self sabotage. It says that I'm going to please you no matter what. I'm going to do everything that you want me to do. But in doing that, you're kind of cutting yourself off, right? Because a relationship or any kind of communication with somebody else should be reciprocal and mutual, right? It's a back and a forth kind of relationship. You should not have to feel like you are sacrificing anything for somebody else. You should never feel like you are self sacrificing for somebody else. So, to people please, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to smile when you want me to. I'm going to do whatever makes you happy is a form of self sabotage. It's putting yourself on the line, right? And giving everything to that other person so much that you lose a piece of yourself. You lose your identity, you lose your own motivations, right? You also lose, opportunities for you to grow and to change and to enjoy your own life. So yes, being a people pleaser is a form of self-sabotage, 100%. Let me also throw in here too. You guys are probably very familiar with the saying family is everything, right? Family is everything. I always say family is everything if they don't hurt you, right? Family is not everything if they hurt you, if they treat you bad, if they abuse you. But that particular saying, family is everything, is also a form of self-sabotage. It's saying that I'm going to only be worthwhile when I am with my family. If I'm outside of my family, I'm not worth much of anything. A form of self-sabotage, 100%. Betsy says, my dad was a narcissist. My mother is a narcissistic or a narcissist, and they crowned my sister head narc. Oh, God. I was assigned scapegoat role because I speak truth. That is why I am here. Have had no contact for 15 years. That's amazing. My God, that's a long time. When you have and this is for you, Betsy, if you have a narcissistic family dynamic where you feel like you are stuck, right, then that's the moment where you need to say to yourself, okay, my health and my mind means so much more than being connected to you. You know what I mean? And hopefully they are all narcissists, because they could have a different personality disorder, or maybe, get this one, maybe they have both narcissism and sociopath, or narcissist or borderline. There could be more than one thing going on there. Excuse me, guys. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Random. I don't think I welcomed you. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I disagree. Realizing my sister is a narcissist was much more devastating than knowing our mother is one. Okay. Let me highlight something here. Excuse me, let me highlight something here that maybe we can narrow that down to, it depends on who you are closest to, right? Random, because maybe you were closer to your sister than your mom, and that's why that was more devastating for you. For most people, the parent, who is the one who kind of takes the leadership role, right, is the individual you don't suspect to be a narcissist or to be a sociopath or even a psychopath, right? But maybe in your specific circumstance, it was your sister. Maybe you were closer to your sister. I don't know. But maybe that was your situation. I appreciate you, though, for bringing that up. Ronald Zion, hello. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, Commitment issues will cause you to run. So heartbreaking. Yes. That's actually in my list of things to mention tonight when it comes to self sabotage, commitment issues. So, Ronald Zion, I'm going to run on that one. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and just say having a difficult time committing is something that causes self sabotage. So, let me give you an example. I once had a client who was 20 years old, wonderful kid, went to college, did everything right, wasn't a partier, didn't sleep around. He did everything he needed to do to a T. Okay. When it came to marrying his girlfriend, what did he do? Well, he ended up having an affair, which postponed that wedding. She forgave him. Right before the wedding, he did it again. Okay. He was afraid of commitment, so he had another affair. She forgave him. They went to marital counseling before they got married. What did he do to self sabotage the marital counseling? Stop going. She says, you know what? If you're not going to go in person, then we're going to do online. What did he do? My computer doesn't work. I was actually in one of those sessions. My computer doesn't work. My camera isn't working. So here's what I said to him. Well, let's use your phone. Can you use your phone? No, my phone is cracked and the camera lens on the back is cracked. There was so many barriers in the way, and he built them, he created them because he didn't want to have to commit to somebody. Did he love her? Yes. Did it seem like they would have been a beautiful family or a couple? Absolutely. I thought they were both beautiful people, but he just couldn't commit. So what did he do? He made mistakes. One after the other, after the other, after the other. And she was wonderful for accepting it and hopefully not being naive, but she seemed like she was being very forgiving. But what he did is he kept setting up barriers, and he built the walls so high every time he had an opportunity to just commit. You can also have commitment issues when it comes to your own personal life, right? I refuse to commit to an education. I refuse to commit to this job. I refuse to not connect, I'm sorry, commit to this particular situation because it's going to, what's the word I'm looking for? Require, that's the word I'm looking for. It's going to require so much from me, you know? So you're right, Ronald Zion. Commitment issues, absolutely, is a form of self sabotage. All right, I'm looking at the comments, guys. Bear with me. Molly T, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Okay, Deb, you may have to help me with this one. I don't know. It is Pasha time. Pasha time. Forgive me if I didn't get that right. Says, my twin is definitely a narc. It hurts my soul to never be able to have a halfway decent convo without being hung up on and told off just for having my own way of thinking. Yeah, absolutely. Let me add to that too, and that's a really difficult dynamic. Let me add that some people self sabotage their own relationships, like your sister getting angry, you can't have a conversation with her, she hangs up on you, the list goes on. Some people self sabotage their own relationships with their family members because they don't want to have to listen. They don't want to have to see where they are wrong. They don't want to have to, process maybe their own thoughts and behaviors that are not right. So what do? You kind of just beat around the bush and you create these barriers and you say, nope, I'm not talking to you. I'm not listening to you. I'm not engaging with you. It's a form of self sabotage. She's sabotaging your relationship. It may be easier for her to do that than it is to just look at the fact that she's wrong. That is sometimes a form of self sabotage. All right, let's see, Fairy Girl. I haven't read any of your comments. I'm sorry. Fairy Fairy Girl says, my parents are terrible to their siblings. I couldn't imagine my brothers and I behaving and thinking ill of each other. Much compassion for that happening. Yeah, absolutely. It is sad. I'm really close to my own brothers. I guess you could call me like the princess in between my brothers when I was younger, of course, not now. But when I was younger, I have a younger one and an older brother. So I'm in the middle. Excuse me. And we never fight ever. Never. Even as kids, we never fought each other. It was my mom with them, the rebellious boys. But my brothers and I have not had one argument. And I find that just a blessing. So I agree with you, Fairy Girl. It's hard to think, of that happening. I very much agree with that. Yes, you are welcome. Hello, NW. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight as well. Live Life says, I think narc parents and enmeshment trauma hinder self efficacy. Yes, nail in the head. Any advice on how to develop a healthier sense of agency with these dynamics after walking away from a toxic family? Well, let me see if I can give you like a short answer to that. Yeah. That's a whole other chat. So here's what I'm going to do. Live life. So I have a chat coming up next week. Excuse me. And I'm literally going to take a picture of your comment and I will answer this comment live next chat. Okay. Because I think that comment deserves a full answer, maybe even a whole live chat. So hang tight, Live Life. Okay. That was a fantastic question. I want to answer that, but it's going to take time away from this specific chat. And I don't want to do that. That's such a great question, though. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm going to keep going here. I'm behind in comments. Justice, hello. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, is it possible to have siblings be on a spectrum of narcissism and a dark empath and even sadistic sociopath? Yes, absolutely. So, is it possible to have siblings be on a spectrum of narcissism? Yes, absolutely. Envision a spectrum being 1 to 10 or mild to severe. Okay. Severe is the narcissist who, you know, excuse me, the narcissist who would create trouble for you. They are, pathologically jealous. They are vindictive. They will actually kill to get what they want. Moderate narcissists might be the narcissists who show some narcissism, but they are uh, almost respectable narcissists within the community. They're politicians, they're in powerful positions of authority. A narcissist who may be on the milder end may just think they are the most beautiful thing that walked out of heaven, right? Vanity, superficialness, the list just goes on. You know what I mean? So, if you're envisioning a spectrum, then I want you to, visualize it as 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. And I might bring this to a live chat, later on in the month. Can you say that a dark empath is on that spectrum? Probably. Honestly, what I think should happen is narcissist is its own category on a spectrum. The dark empath really is that individual who is narcissistic, they're a sociopath, and they also have Machiavellianism, kind of like this sadistic desire to hurt other people. That's not a category in and of itself. A narcissist can be a dark empath. So, it's hard to pick and pull these things apart, right? Because you're probably thinking a dark empath is its own category, a narcissist is its own category. A dark empath is one, and I hope I'm understanding your question correctly, is one individual who has an additional level of traits. Does that make sense? So, like a narcissist also has Machiavellianism as traits. They also have some kind of psychopathy traits in addition to their narcissism. I hope that made sense. If not, let me know, Justice. That was a great question, though. Let me keep going, guys. Thank you, Deb. I tried. Hope. Oh, she says bingo. Got it. That's wonderful. That's good. Okay. I'm going to go back to the content in a minute, guys. Random says people pleasing is phonunk, which is done subconsciously to obtain safety, though. So, although it does sabotage, it serves as a purpose in the moment. Yeah, it does. It does. I agree. Yep, I agree. People pleasing does work in the moment, but ultimately can become self sabotaging. I agree with that. Can you guys see that pausing? I don't know what's going on, but hopefully, hopefully we're okay. Yes, I'm glad to hear that, fairy girl. Okay, let me get back to the content for you guys. We left off at unhealthy relationship beliefs. The next thing that I didn't mention, well, we left off, let me say, in fear of commitment. I'm sorry, fear of commitment. So let me add on to this, okay? The next behavior of self sabotage that you are likely to see is a fear of moving up in life. So, what do you do when you are used to being a part of a toxic family dynamic and you want out of it, right? But family members say that you're either better than that, you think you're better than them, you think you're smarter than them, you want too much in life. I once had a client come into my office with her jealous hearted brother, and the first thing he said to his sister when I asked, "Why are you so angry with her?" And he says to me, "Because she thinks she's better than us." And where he came up with that is she wanted out of the family dynamic that was toxic. She did not want to be enmeshed with her father anymore. She did not want to be the parentified child. She did not want to be the one who has to take the pain for just being outspoken and understanding the family dynamics. All of that caused her to say, "I want out of this family situation. I want to go to a different level of my life." So her brother said she thinks she's better than me. So sometimes there's a fear of moving up in life or moving forward. And, in addition to that fear, there may be some anxiety. Why? Because, again, you may not want to deal with family members saying you think you're better, you think that we're crazy and you're not. I've heard some family members say that before in session. I've also heard, "Who do you think you are to leave us behind?" All of those statements can really make you kind of collapse, right? And it can make you feel like you're the problem. So what do? You sometimes you collapse and you say, "You know what? Forget it. I'm just going to stay here." And it's a form of self-sabotage. You know that staying in that family unit is not going to be healthy for you, but you do it because it's easier. You do it because it's familiar, right? And you don't want to have to deal with the fear and the anxiety that comes from that. Some people also self sabotage with becoming content with the way that things are. You become content with the way that things are. Here's what I mean by that: intergenerational trauma or family toxicity creates a situation where it may be hard for you to move up in life. It may be hard for you to move forward in life because the trauma and the toxicity from your family has been so burdensome in your life, and it's burdened you that you kind of have a form of fatigue. There's an energy deficit, as some people call it. You are exhausted emotionally, psychologically, and maybe even physically. You don't want to have to deal with this toxic, unhealthy family unit anymore. You also don't want to have to deal with their criticisms of you. So you may finally make up in your mind that it is easier to stay a part of this dynamic than it is to try to move forward and deal with the criticism. So you kind of become content with the way that things are. You talk to your mind and you try to look at things a different way. You talk to your heart. You try to find some good in your family dynamic. You try to cling to maybe good family members. You do whatever it takes to stay connected because you don't want to have to deal with the criticism of walking away and leaving. And that's a form of self sabotage. I'm going to stay here because I don't want to have to deal with the backlash. So you become content with the way that things are. You may also fear losing respect from other family members, the brother that you're still close to, the sister that you're still close to, the grandmother that you love, right? The father that has done everything for you. You want to walk away from that toxic family dynamic. Am I frozen, guys? Let me know if I'm frozen. I think I'm frozen. uh oh my god. Okay. So I am frozen, but the that is so weird, guys. No. Okay. So I don't know what to do, and I don't want to end the stream. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restart the whole stream and hopefully it will be better, okay? Let me restart the entire stream. Yeah, cuz it's not going to be unfrozen, guys. Oh, what a headache. YouTube has been giving us so many issues lately. Okay. Thank you, Ronald Zion. Thank you. That's so weird. Okay. It's frozen. All right. Okay. And AEF, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you tonight. Let me see if I can fix it this way. I don't know if that's going to work. Okay. I may try to wrap up from here. Nope, it's still frozen. Okay. Okay. Serafina says an impromptu podcast. Oh my goodness. This is so weird. And I bet you it's YouTube again. Um, okay. Well, all I know to do is keep going. I'm just gonna keep talking and then we will. I know, right? NW, it's a mess. I can't stand YouTube sometimes. I'm gonna keep going and then yeah, I know it's very weird. I'm gonna keep going and then we will go ahead and wrap up. This is so weird. Exactly. Now it's a podcast. Reboot. Anthony says reboot. I'd like to reboot. Okay, let me see what happens if I reboot. Okay, guys. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, guys, you should be able to see me. Can you see me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yes. Okay. I have no clue what happened. Oh God. Okay. Perfect. I swear. Am I the only YouTuber who goes through this? I better not be. This is so ridiculous. I know, right? Okay. Yikes. This is so weird. So, okay. I'm back. I swear I'm the only YouTuber that goes through this. I swear. So, I think we left off at being content with the way things are, but I was going to say after that, you kind of fear losing respect from the people that you care for. You know what I mean? Why would you want to walk out of a family unit when you have respect for your brother, you have respect for your sister, you have respect from your grandmother? It really is hard to walk away and leave your mother if she's a narcissist or excuse me, sociopath. It's really hard to leave that mother if you have a certain amount of respect for your other family members, right? Because it could feel like you have something against those other family members, right, guys? So, I wouldn't want to walk away from a family situation where I might rock the boat too much and lose respect from my brother, my sister, my cousin over there, my grandparents, right? So sometimes you might decide, or some people decide, I'm going to stay in this unhealthy, toxic unit because I don't want to lose the respect that I already have from other family members, a form of self sabotage. Let me also mention this as the last point of behaviors that are self sabotaging. There's this theory, it's a theory of masochism. And this is more from the psychoanalytic perspective, or the Sigmund Freud perspective, where some individuals derive a certain pleasure from self-sabotage. It's almost like a Machiavellianism, where you kind of get this stimulatory pleasure from treating other people bad and seeing them hurt and seeing them cry. Well, okay. Sorry, guys. I had to pause and make sure I'm okay. If you have that personality trait, I'll call it, of Machiavellianism, then you get the stimulation from hurting people or seeing other people hurt. Masochism is kind of the idea, it's similar to that, but it's kind of the idea of, I like to self sabotage, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because I derive some kind of pleasure out of harming myself. I derive some kind of pleasure out of postponing my success or creating barriers. For the most part, it's an unconscious process. If Sigmund Freud were still alive today, he would say it's a unconscious kind of survival mechanism because of childhood trauma. You know that if you try to make one step forward, you're probably going to fail. So you might as well give up, you know? It's also the idea of a self fulfilling prophecy. I kind of see myself failing. So because I see myself failing, I'm just going to stop right here because there's no sense in trying. There's also the idea of learned helplessness, right? I've kind of learned to be helpless because every time I try to be independent, I fail. Every time I try to be happy, I get depressed. Every time I try to move ahead in my life, I get pushed back. So what's happening? All these experiences are teaching me that there's no use in trying. So what do? I give up because that's all I can do. I give up, right? So that's something to think about with yourself. Let's say you are self sabotaging. You want to ask yourself, is this learned helplessness? Am I self sabotaging my relationships? Am I self sabotaging my relationships with my family? Excuse me. Am I self sabotaging with the decisions that I'm making in my life? This is important. You also want to look at your family, look at the generations within your family. Does my family self sabotage? I will share with you that my own family, I've seen them self sabotage before. And the way that they self sabotage is through relationships. The younger generations, my brothers, my cousins, myself, we've kind of cut off the intergenerational trauma because we've gone a whole different route in our lives. But my family members, my older family members, my mom, my uncle, cousins, my older cousins, there was a pattern of self-sabotaging when it came to relationships, because here's what would happen. They would date the same guys that maybe the generation before them dated, and the relationship never worked out. They married the kind of people that they knew wouldn't be committed to them. They kind of let go of their drive and their motivation in life because it was easier to just sit on the side of the road and say, I'm done. Right. So there was a lot of self sabotaging in my family until it got to myself, my brothers, and my cousins. And we all realized at a certain point, this is self sabotage, and we can't continue. We can't continue this. Can you stop self-sabotaging? That's $1 million question. That's $1 million question, because what you want to do is be able to determine, am I self-sabotaging unintentionally? And if I am, why is that happening? Why is that happening? So you want to be able to look at your patterns of behavior. Is this self-sabotage? If you were my client, here's what I would do. I would say, get a piece of paper, sit by yourself, kind of meditate on this, sit by yourself, write down all the different situations where you could have self sabotaged, and ask yourself, is this a pattern in my life? And if so, what do I need to do to ensure this doesn't happen again? And so that's what I would have you do if you were in session with me. Write down a listing of things that could be seen as self sabotage and explore, am I self sabotaging? And if so, how do I stop this from happening again? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the chat box. I love what NW says. She says, or he says, I don't even know if it's a girl or boy. This commenter says, NW says, you have to put in the hard work. You have to put in the work. Yes, you do. When you find that you have a family system that self-sabotages, everybody in that family system that's toxic, that's unhealthy, they do things repeatedly throughout generations that's self-sabotaging. You have to put in the work to get out of that. You have to say, I'm done with this process. I'm going to create a new line of events. A new situation is what's needed here, right? Free Live says, can you heal from self sabotage? Because I feel like my life is stuck. I've always been a people pleaser, which has made me lose my own identity. Yeah, absolutely. That's another fantastic question from you tonight. I'm gonna say yes. You can heal. You can heal self sabotaging. Um, it's going to take, though, a process of unraveling why. So you're gonna have to figure out: am I doing this intentionally, or am I doing this unintentionally? How do I know if this is intentional or unintentional? Once I figure out if I'm doing one or the other or both, then I need to write down all the different scenarios that shows that I have self-sabotaged. Do I need to give myself an opportunity to create new scenarios where I'm doing things that shows I'm trying, right? Let's say, for example, you want to lose weight. Instead of overeating, you want to lose weight, but you're overeating, which is self-sabotage. Instead of overeating, maybe you can make yourself several small things to eat throughout the day to help your weight loss goals. Does that make sense? Let's say, for example, you have a heart condition. I'm just giving you examples to kind of help you determine where you're at. So let's say you have a heart condition. Your doctor told you no salts, right? No spicy foods. You go home and you eat salt and spicy foods. If you want to get out of that self-sabotaging mindset, you want to go home and say, okay, salt in moderation, hot spices in moderation. And I have to hold off my desire for those foods until I see myself making some progress. Does that make sense, guys? So that's how you heal self-sabotaging. You have to decide sometimes that you're going to turn this corner and continue going in that direction if it proves to be successful. That's my best advice for that. Now, in terms of losing your identity, let me just say your identity is going to come back and flourish the more that you push back that self-sabotaging disposition or mindset that you've had. For me personally, and even for my clients that I've worked with who self-sabotage, I've noticed that when you decide to take a different road, when you decide to let go of the self-sabotaging behaviors, once you identify that you're doing this, your identity comes back automatically, because you're seeing yourself making progress. You're seeing yourself change your road and your path. I hope that is helpful, Free Live. That is such a great question. Hello, Liberty Can. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you tonight. You missed all the fun earlier, and I'm frozen again. But can you guys hear me though? I so don't understand what's I have no idea what's going on. I don't. I just don't. but at least you can hear me. All right, guys. So I'm going to restart this again. Give me a second, okay? Ugh. Okay, you guys should be able to see me now, no issues. I honestly think that it is my system that's doing this. It's a new system. It's called StreamYard. I love them. They are great, but I think they're having issues tonight. Yes, awesome. Thank you for letting me know I'm back again. Wonderful, wonderful. This is so aggravating, and I'm so sorry, guys. Um, yes, Brenda Brown. Yep, she likes my comment on saying create new scenarios. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Not a game. Hello, welcome to the chat. By the way, glad to have you tonight. You missed all the fun earlier, and it happened again a couple minutes ago. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. We're on our way to sign off. Okay. What? I hope not. Welcome to the chat, Knowledge Seeker 78. Glad to have you tonight. I swear this is so weird. I don't know what's going on. So sorry, guys. I hate this because I have no control over it, you know? All right, guys. So I'm going through your comments. We're going to go ahead and wrap up in a couple minutes. Get it. I don't get it. And I never will. Now I'm back. It's so weird. You're talking to Charlotte Live Life, and I like what you say. It says we got to do whatever we can. It really helps because you start to realize where so many of the self-sabotaging behaviors stem from, and you can then nip it in the bud. Absolutely. The goal here, and I hope that this live chat was helpful to you in the sense that you now can identify what self-sabotage looks like, even within a family, or what it looks like even in your own personal life. Yeah, and in order to figure out your self-sabotaging behavior, you do have to be able to identify where it stems from. 100%. LC I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, hi all. I am usually driving and listening, so I cannot comment, but home tonight. So glad to be here live tonight. You all are a motivation to spread the love and light out there. That's such a beautiful comment, and thank you for that. On a night where you actually could make it live, we're having a lot of tech issues. I have no idea why, but I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have you. Justice says, my sister self sabotages. She will torment me and then gets mad when I won't play her games. And then she plays the victim, and the others tell her to just ignore the abuse from me. What abuse? Well, here we go. So, what you're talking about here is something known as, we're a little bit over time, but let me give you an example of this. Hold on. So, I'm going to grab some paper and I'm going to show you what's going on here. Okay, so what seems to be going on here is called the drama triangle. And I'm just going to give you a visual. And I talk a lot about um, the drama triangle a lot because it happens in more families than you would believe. So here's what's happening to you, Justice. It's called the drama triangle. So the victim here, or at least in her own mind, is the sister, right? You There we go. You are the persecutor, right? The one who's pointing the fingers. And which way are we going here? And the rescuer is the one who is telling her to just ignore the abuse from you. So the drama triangle happens a lot in families. And it happens usually when the family dynamic is toxic. Somebody assumes the role of victim, they put you in the role of persecutor, and then whoever the rescuer is, they're the ones who's giving the advice to the victim, right? And so a lot of families who are toxic engage in that dynamic. It's very, very unhealthy. Very unhealthy. That may be. I don't know. I never have these issues when it comes to my Zoom meetings. I don't know what's going on. All right, I'm going to keep going. Thank you, Deb. I will definitely take your advice on that one. Maybe. Truth be told, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. We're going to sign off in a little bit here. Says, I tried to get biblical with this stuff. Yeah, I think it's okay to do that. Sometimes when you're looking for clarity, when you're looking for wisdom, guidance, right? When you're looking for something to make sense, going to the Bible is absolutely fine. Yeah, you'd be surprised. You may find a story in the Bible, right, where there's some self-sabotaging going on, and that could really be an eye-opener for you. Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, truth be told said that's really my saving grace. Absolutely. I'm going to drop this out here for those of you who are biblical. If you know about the story of Solomon, he was a king. You might want to go look that story up. Solomon self-sabotaged. He did. So I'm going to leave it at that. You know what, Justice? It could be because we have a bad snowstorm where I'm at. It could be. Thank you for that. Hello, B. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Do the replay. We're gonna sign off in a little bit here. So do the replay. Hello, Nova. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. I don't want to miss any of you. Hold on. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it is very sad, right? Because when you're pushed into those unhealthy, toxic roles, it's hard to unravel yourself from them, you know? Yeah. Thank you for that, Serafina. Samson, too. Yes. Samson is also a man in the Bible who self-sabotaged with, was it Delilah? I think it was Delilah. All right, guys, I love talking to you. I just hope next week's live chat won't be this way. I'm sorry for the interruptions. Not sure what's going on, but glad to have you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments that you want to leave for me, go ahead and leave them in the chat box. I'm going to make sure that I put everything, all the research behind everything I talked about tonight in the description box for you. And if you are in one of those areas where there's a storm, please stay safe. My roads are awful, and I mean icy. That's kind of like put your bunny slippers on, and you're not leaving the house for a whole week. So thank you again for being in this live chat. I will see you guys really, really soon. Love you much. Bye bye.